Have you ever really stopped to think about how you think? I mean, really think about it? For decades, there's been this one really powerful idea about what the mind is. But today, we're going to dive into a radical new theory that basically wants to flip that entire idea on its head.
So this is the metaphor we've all kind of grown up with, right? The brain is the hardware, your mind is the software. It takes in data from your senses, crunches the numbers, and spits out a command. It's a really neat picture. It's tidy, but what if it's just wrong? Like fundamentally wrong? What if thinking is less about computing an answer and more about creating a world?
So check this out. This slide really just lays out the battle lines. On one side, you've got the old view, called cognitivism. It sees the mind as this kind of passive spectator, just building an internal map of an outside world. But the enactive view? It says the mind, the body, and the world are all in this constant dance together. We don't just receive information, our actions and our interactions are what generate meaning in the first place.
All right, so let's get into our first big idea, the world we create. This really gets to the heart of what this whole revolutionary theory is all about. What on earth does it mean to enact your world?
So here it is, the official definition. And the key phrase, the one to really focus on, is dynamic interaction between an acting organism and its environment. So it's not about some brain just sitting there in the dark trying to solve puzzles. It's about a living, moving creature out in the world, totally connected with everything around it. Thinking isn't just something your brain does, it's something your whole body does, in context.
And this quote from the pioneers of enactivism, man, it just nails it. They're saying there isn't some finished, perfect, objective world just sitting out there waiting for our minds to come along and figure it out. No. Instead, the mind and the world actually pop into existence together. They bring each other forth.
And this is where it gets really cool. It's this idea of mutual codetermination. Think about a bee. A bee's world is a world of nectar and pollen, but only because its body is built to interact with flowers in a certain way. Our world is shaped by our ability to walk, to grab things, to talk to each other. We basically define our own little universe of problems and possibilities just by what we do.
Okay, so how does this whole cognition is action thing actually work? Well, enactivism is part of this bigger family of ideas that people often call the 4 E's, and they really help us break this whole theory down into 4 pieces that all lock together.
All right, let's break these down. First, cognition is embodied. Our thoughts are literally shaped by having a body. You know how you lean forward when you're really into a conversation? That's what we're talking about. Second, it's embedded. Our thinking only makes sense in our environment. I mean, an expert chef's incredible skill is kind of useless without a kitchen, right? Third, it's enacted. That's our big one, meaning thinking is really a form of skill doing. And finally, cognition can be extended. So think about a blind person's cane. That's not just a tool, right? It's literally an extension of their sense of touch. Or your smartphone. It's an extension of your memory. Your mind just isn't locked away in your skull.
And you might be thinking, okay, cool theory, but what does this have to do with anything? Well, it turns out a lot. Enactivism has these huge implications for how we understand ourselves and the world, from our social lives all the way to robotics.
So how do we understand each other? The old way of thinking says we're basically trying to be mind readers, guessing what's going on in someone else's head. But enactivism offers this way more dynamic idea, participatory sense-making. Understanding isn't something one person does alone. It's a meaning we build together, through the back and forth of the interaction itself. It's a dance, not a puzzle.
And this is having a huge impact in robotics, too. Instead of trying to program a robot with a perfect internal map of the world, enactivist designers have them learn by doing. They actually explore their environment, bump into things, make mistakes, and build up their knowledge through active engagement. You know, kind of like how a little kid learns.
You can see this in education, too. It gets at this idea that you can't just memorize a bunch of facts out of a book and call that knowing. Real knowledge is tied to the activity, the context, the culture where it's actually used. True learning, it's just inseparable from doing.
But let's be real, a big idea like this, a revolution, it's not going to go unchallenged. Enactivism has its critics, and it's facing some pretty tough questions.
And here it is, the big one, the question that critics always bring up. Okay, fine, maybe this whole embodied active approach explains how we can catch a ball or walk around a room. But what about writing a novel? Or doing calculus? Or planning for your retirement? How does doing explain that?
In the field, they call this the scale-up objection. Basically, critics argue that for all these higher-level things we do, like language or planning for the future, it seems really, really hard to explain them without bringing back the very thing Enactivism wanted to get rid of in the first place. Those internal representations, those little mental symbols. And honestly, this is still one of the hottest debates going on right now.
So where does that leave us? As this whole revolution continues to unfold, what's the big takeaway from this really profound shift in thinking?
Okay, so if you're going to walk away with just a few things from all this, let it be these. First, cognition is an action. It's doing something. Second, our minds, our bodies, and our world aren't three separate things. They are one deeply connected system. And that means we aren't just spectators watching the movie of life, we're actually the active creators of its meaning. And finally, our very sense of who we are, our self, it comes from this constant dynamic interaction we have with the world.
Maybe the best way to sum all this up is to think about this metaphor. The old model gave us this image of a lonely brain in a vat, just passively processing inputs. Enactivism gives us a dancer on a dance floor, skillfully, dynamically connected to the music, the floor, their partner, creating something brand new with every single step.
And that leaves you with a pretty huge question, doesn't it? If Enactivism is right, then we're not just living in a world. We are constantly bringing a world into being through everything we do. So the question isn't just what you're going to think today, but what kind of reality, what kind of world are you going to choose to enact with your actions, starting right now?